Welcome to another deep dive. This time we're tackling a topic every writer grapples with, creating characters that truly stick with you.
Unforgettable characters.
Exactly. And we've got a fantastic guide to help us out.
You're talking about the book our listener sent in.
Right. Salisha, which translates to, well,
Creating Unforgettable Characters.
by Linda Seeger. Along with that, we've got this list of films and plays she mentions, plus the listener's notes on character research.
Lots to dig into.
So much. But our mission today is to distill the book's wisdom, to help anyone listening, no matter their experience, write characters that, well...
Leap off the page.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one thing that struck me right away was Seeger's whole approach to character development.
How so?
It's like she sees it as this journey into, like, the heart of human nature.
Right. Understanding people. It's fundamental.
Totally. And the book actually points out that the formal study of personality is, like, surprisingly recent.
Oh, you mean how it's only about 100 years old?
100 years. That's crazy.
It is quite young compared to other fields.
It makes you wonder what writers did before then. Like, how did they even approach character?
Well, before psychology was established, they relied more on observation and intuition.
So more just gut feeling.
Exactly. But now we have tools like Erik Erikson's stages of psychosocial development.
Okay, that sounds pretty academic. Break it down for us.
Sure. This theory suggests that we face certain conflicts at different points in our lives.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. Like the classic teenage struggle for identity.
Exactly. Or a midlife crisis where someone questions everything.
Oh, yeah, those are great examples. But how can a writer actually use this theory? It still seems pretty theoretical.
Well, let's say you're writing a coming-of-age story. Your protagonist could be stuck in Erikson's identity versus role confusion stage.
Okay.
They might rebel against authority, try on different personas, or just really struggle to figure out where they fit in.
Wow, I see. That's a great way to add depth. And the character's actions are driven by something, like, deeper than just being a teenager.
Exactly. It gives their behavior a psychological basis.
Which makes them more believable, right?
Much more.
And speaking of depth, the book really digs into the importance of backstory. What's Seeger's take on that?
She defines backstory as everything that happened before the story even starts. Childhood, relationships, triumphs, traumas, all of it. It's the foundation on which the character stands.
You know, it makes total sense when you think about a film like Witness.
Oh, great example.
The main character's past as a cop completely impacts how he deals with that Amish community.
Right. Without that backstory, his actions wouldn't be as believable.
Not at all. It'd be like, why is this guy acting this way?
Exactly. It'd be jarring. But it's not about just dumping information either. A long, detailed backstory isn't always necessary.
Right. Sometimes less is more.
Exactly. Take a sitcom like Happy Days, for example.
Oh, good one. You get glimpses of their pasts, but the focus is on what's happening right now.
Right. Seeger acknowledges that different genres and formats require different approaches to backstory.
So how does a writer figure out how much backstory is enough?
It depends on the story. If it's a huge epic, you might need more to ground the characters. But for a fast-paced thriller, you might only need a few key details.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's about, like, finding that sweet spot.
You said it. Too much info, and it bogs down the story. Not enough, and they feel flat.
Exactly. But where does a writer even start digging for those backstory details?
Seeger has a surprising suggestion. Start with yourself. She recommends keeping a work journal.
A work journal for characters.
Yep. Jot down observations about people in everyday life. You'd be amazed what you start noticing.
I do that sometimes. It's funny how, like, a tiny detail, the way someone holds their coffee cup, it can spark a whole character idea.
Exactly. It's those small details that can often reveal the most about a person.
But how do you go from observation to a fully fleshed person on the page? It seems like a big leap.
Seeger stresses one key question. Why? Every action, every choice your character makes needs a deeper why driving it.
Ooh, that's good. So it's not just about what they do, it's about the reason behind it. Give me an example.
Okay, remember that elderly man we talked about? The one meticulously washing his car?
Yeah, remember? What about him?
Maybe he just lost his wife. This is his way of clinging to order in a world that suddenly feels chaotic.
Oh, wow. That adds a whole layer of, like, pathos to a simple action.
Yeah.
It's so much more human.
Exactly. And those reasons often stem from their inner conflicts, their desires, fears, even unresolved issues. Seeger even brings up some psychological theories here, referencing people like Sigmund Freud.
Oh, wow, Freud. That's going deep.
It can get pretty complex, like Freud's idea of the id, ego, and superego.
Okay, refresh my memory. It's like
Huh.
primal urges.
Exactly. The superego is our moral compass, and the ego is stuck in the middle trying to referee.
Aha, I like that. The ego as referee. So how does that translate to character?
Imagine your character wrestling with a decision. The id pushes for immediate gratification, the superego for restraint. The ego's got to find a compromise that satisfies both sides.
That's fascinating. It's not just good versus evil. It's those internal struggles.
Mm-hmm.
I can see how that would make a character feel so much more real.
Real and relatable, because we all experience those internal struggles to some extent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just what's happening inside their heads, right? It's also about how they interact with.
Other people.
Yes. Relationships.
Yeah.
It's got to be huge.
Huge. Seeger emphasizes that relationships shape us as much as any internal factor.
I can see that. Like how I act with my boss
Yeah,
is totally different from how I am with my best friend. Totally different sides of me come out.
exactly. And she encourages writers to explore all sorts of dynamics. Love, friendship, rivalry, family.
Oh yeah, family. Those can be the most complicated of all. But how do you, actually you ease those relationships to build a good character?
Well, each of those relationships can bring out different facets of a person. Someone who's always in control might completely unravel when a romantic relationship falls apart.
So it's like their relationships act as these mirrors, reflecting back different parts of who they are.
That's a great way to put it. And those contrasts create opportunities for conflict, growth, even big revelations about the character.
Okay, I'm getting it. It's like you can't just tell me a character is strong.
Yeah.
You got to show me through how they handle those tough relationships.
You got it. And Seeger gives a great example. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. They're best friends, but their relationship's full of playful banter, challenges, even moments of tension.
Oh yeah, it feels so real because it's not all sunshine and roses.
Exactly. Too much harmony can be just as boring as constant conflict.
It's that push and pull that makes it interesting. Speaking of push and pull, Seeger talks about the power of archetypes. Can you explain what those are?
Archetypes are those universal, symbolic characters we see again and again throughout history and across cultures. The hero, the villain, the mentor, the trickster. They tap into something deep in our collective unconscious.
Ooh, I like that. Collective unconscious. So it's like we're pre-programmed to recognize these types.
In a way, yes. And those familiar patterns can be very powerful for storytelling.
Okay, so how can a writer use these effectively? Does it get kind of cliche?
It can if you're not careful. Seeger cautions against just falling into stereotypes. The hero shouldn't be flawlessly good. The villain shouldn't be pure evil.
Right, they need to be more nuanced.
Exactly. It's about finding those unique quirks and contradictions that make them individuals, not just stock characters.
Okay, so it's like using the archetype as a starting point, but then really digging deeper to make them your own.
Precisely. It's about taking those familiar patterns and subverting expectations.
And speaking of subverting expectations, Seeger also talks about the importance of avoiding.
Stereotypes. Yes, it's a big one. She argues that individual traits are far more powerful than relying on tired stereotypes.
Because stereotypes are just lazy shortcuts.
Right, yeah.
They reduce people to these simple caricatures based on gender, ethnicity, or whatever.
Exactly. And they can be very harmful, perpetuating biases.
Right, you don't want to be contributing to that. So how do you avoid those pitfalls?
Seeger provides lots of examples of how stereotypes can be detrimental and offers practical advice on crafting characters who defy expectations. It's about doing the work, digging deeper to find those unique qualities that make each person, each character feel authentic.
Authentic and believable. Because in the end, that's what we're all aiming for, right?
Absolutely. That sense of truth is what makes a character unforgettable. And speaking of truth, how a character speaks is crucial.
Right. Their dialogue has to be spot on. It can't just be like generic lines.
No, dialogue is a powerful tool. Seeger stresses that it should reveal character, not just convey information.
So it's about how they say it, not just what they say.
Exactly. She suggests using slang, regional dialects, even unique speech patterns, anything to make their voice distinct.
Ooh, that reminds me of Midnight Run. Robert De Niro's character, the bounty hunter, has this gruff way of talking, totally different from the guy he's chasing, who's more refined.
Perfect example. Their contrasting voices instantly create conflict and humor.
It's like you can hear their personalities clashing.
Exactly. And a character's voice should reflect their personality, background, even their emotional state in the moment.
So much of what we've talked about feels like it's happening below the surface, those inner workings. But what about their outward appearance? How much does that matter?
Appearance matters. Seeger emphasizes the importance of visualizing your characters, not just what they look like, but how they move, how they interact with their environment.
Okay, so it's about painting a picture for the reader, making them really see the character.
Exactly. Like imagine a character who always wears bright, flamboyant clothing.
Oh, I can picture that. Maybe they're trying to stand out, be noticed.
Or maybe they're trying to mask insecurity.
Ah, that's a good twist.
Mhm.
So it's not just about describing clothes, it's about what those choices reveal about them.
Precisely. And it's not just clothes. Their posture, hairstyle, even their favorite coffee mug can contribute to a more complete picture.
And what about their physical surroundings? Does that play a role?
Absolutely. Where a character lives, works, spends their time, it all shapes who they are.
You know, it's interesting to think about how someone's home might reflect their personality. A person who lives in a super organized, minimalist space is probably very different from someone who thrives in a cluttered, bohemian environment.
Exactly. The way they decorate, the objects they surround themselves with, it all speaks volumes.
It's like those details act as visual cues, giving you a deeper understanding without explicitly stating it.
Exactly. It's all about showing, not telling.
But all these details, the visuals, the inner life, the relationships, what if you have this amazing character, but you're not sure what they're actually doing in the story?
Ah, the question of purpose.
Right, because even the best character needs a reason to exist in the narrative. What's their role?
Seeger argues that every character, even the seemingly minor ones, should have a function. They might drive the plot, reveal something about the main characters, or provide a unique perspective on the themes.
Okay, so it's like everyone has a part to play.
Exactly. It's like a play, actually. Every character has their entrance and exit, and those moments are carefully orchestrated for maximum impact.
I like that analogy. So no one is just randomly wandering around.
Hopefully not. Their presence should be intentional, not accidental. And to make those entrances and exits count, you need to consider their goals.
Goals, like what they're striving for in the story.
Exactly. What motivates them? What obstacles stand in their way?
This is where we get to the heart of storytelling, right? Because a character without a goal is like a ship without a rudder. They're just drifting.
You said it. And those goals don't have to be grand, world-changing things. Sometimes the most compelling stories are about seemingly ordinary desires. Like, imagine a character who just wants to win a local pie baking contest, or finally ask their crush out on a date.
Okay, I like that. It sounds small, but it could be huge for that character.
Exactly. Those seemingly small goals can become monumental when you factor in the character's internal struggles, their fear, their doubts.
It's about showing the human side of that pursuit, the emotional roller coaster.
Right. The journey is just as important as the destination.
And those journeys are never smooth sailing, right? There's got to be conflict.
Of course. Conflict is the engine that drives a story. A character's goal will inevitably clash with the goals of other characters
Which creates tension.
and drives the plot forward.
It's what keeps us on the edge of our seats, wondering if they'll overcome those obstacles, achieve their goals, triumph in the end.
Exactly. And Seeger emphasizes that those struggles, those conflicts, are what ultimately lead to transformation. A character who emerges from a challenge unchanged is a missed opportunity.
So it's not just about giving them a goal, it's about showing how that pursuit changes them.
For better or for worse.
Oh yeah, good point. Sometimes they end up worse, like more cynical or hardened.
Exactly. Those transformations, those character arcs can take many forms.
Like someone might start weak and become strong, or start closed off and learn to open up.
Exactly. The possibilities are endless.
But the key is to make it feel like a natural progression of who they are.
Organic and believable, a result of the choices they make and the challenges they face.
Now, this all sounds great, but let's get real for a second. We all have flaws. What does Seeger say about incorporating flaws into our characters?
She believes they're essential for making characters relatable.
Really?
Yeah,
I would think you'd want to make your characters likable and admirable.
of course. But no one's perfect. Trying to create flawless characters is just boring.
It's like those impossibly beautiful, impossibly talented characters you sometimes see in movies. They're just not believable. They don't feel human.
Exactly. It's those imperfections, those cracks in the facade that make us connect with them.
Because we see ourselves in them, right?
Exactly. We all have our weaknesses, our struggles, and seeing those reflected in fictional characters makes them feel more real.
So it's not about making them perfect. It's about making them human.
You got it. And those flaws can add depth, complexity, even a bit of suspense.
Suspense. How so?
Well, they make us wonder if the character will overcome those weaknesses or if those flaws will ultimately be their undoing. Like, imagine a character who is brilliant but also incredibly insecure. That insecurity might lead them to make self-sabotaging choices or push away the people who care about them.
Oh, that's a good one. Or what about someone who is charming and charismatic, but also a compulsive liar?
Perfect example. Their inability to be honest might jeopardize their relationships and ultimately lead to their downfall
Oh, I can totally see that. So those flaws create conflict, raise the stakes.
and keep the reader guessing.
Exactly. But they also make the character more human, right?
Right.
Because we all have those weaknesses. It's often through confronting and overcoming those weaknesses that characters achieve the most meaningful growth.
That's a great point. It's about showing the full complexity of human nature, the light and the shadow within us all.
And speaking of shadows, Seeger brings up secrets. Why does she think it's important for characters to have secrets?
Secrets add a layer of intrigue. They make us wonder what the character is hiding, why they're hiding it, and what might happen if the truth comes out.
Ooh, that's good. Like, what if a character seems happy and successful, but secretly they're harboring this deep regret that could unravel their whole life?
Exactly. Or maybe they're secretly in love with someone they can't be with, or hiding a talent they're afraid to share.
Ooh, I love those. So those secrets create tension.
Raise the stakes.
And the moment of revelation when the truth comes out, that can be huge EE.
It can be a major turning point in the story, changing relationships, altering the course of events.
And forcing the character to confront something they've been denying. Secrets can be powerful. But what about those events in a character's past that are beyond their control?
You're talking about past traumas.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
do those fit into this whole character development thing?
Well, Seeger suggests exploring how past traumas can shape a character's personality, their fears, their relationships, really their whole outlook on life.
It's a sensitive topic, but it's true that past traumas can have a huge EE impact on who we are, even if we try to bury them.
Absolutely. They can shape our worldview, our behavior, our ability to trust, our capacity for love.
Think about a character who witnessed a violent crime as a child or went through a natural disaster. Those events might make them withdraw from others or constantly feel like they need to be in control.
Or they might become fiercely protective of those they love.
Right, because they've seen how fragile life can be.
Hmm.
So exploring those past traumas, always with sensitivity and respect, can add a layer of depth.
Exactly. It's about showing how those experiences have shaped them, both their strengths and their vulnerabilities. And while those traumas can be very impactful, Seeger also reminds us that even the most deeply wounded characters can find moments of joy and connection.
One of the best ways to create those moments is through
Humor.
humor. Yes, such a powerful tool. It can diffuse tension, bring people together, even help us cope with tough situations.
Absolutely. And a character's sense of humor can be just as unique as their fingerprint.
Right. Their humor should reflect who they are, not just some generic funny lines.
Exactly. Seeger stresses that each character should have their own distinct sense of humor. Think about someone who uses dry wit and sarcasm as a defense mechanism versus someone who's always cracking jokes.
Those are totally different approaches, and they tell us something about the person underneath, right? Like how they cope.
Exactly. It can reveal their social intelligence, their outlook on life. And a well-placed joke can do so much. Break the tension, provide relief from a heavy moment, even deepen the emotional impact of a scene.
It's about finding that balance between humor and seriousness, creating a story that's both entertaining and thought-provoking.
That's the sweet spot.
Speaking of thought-provoking, Seeger also talks about giving your characters a strong moral compass. It's not enough for them to just be interesting. They also need a sense of right and wrong.
That's so true. A character's moral compass is what guides their actions, what they stand for, and ultimately what makes them heroic or villainous.
So it's about defining their values, what they believe in, what they're willing to fight for, and how do those values play out in the story? Do those always stay the same?
Well, their moral compasses can be really strong, unshakable, or they can be fragile, susceptible to temptation. Think about a character who always does the right thing, even when it's difficult.
Okay, I see that. The classic hero, someone who puts their own needs aside for what they believe in.
Exactly. But then contrast that with a character who is easily swayed by greed or power. They might start out with good intentions, but their moral compass gets warped along the way.
Oh, those are always interesting. The ones who fall from grace. So it's about showing those choices, those moral dilemmas, because that's where we really see their true nature.
Exactly. And those choices often tie into a character's sense of agency. Do they feel in control of their own destiny, or are they constantly reacting to the whims of fate? Seeger stresses how important it is to give characters agency, to let them make choices that have a real impact on the story.
So they're not just puppets being manipulated by the plot or other characters, they're active participants.
Exactly. Readers want to see characters who are making decisions, facing consequences, shaping their own outcomes. Think about a character who is offered a promotion, but it requires compromising their ethics.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Right. We're on the edge of our seats because we want to see how they wrestle with that dilemma, what choice they'll ultimately make. And those choices shouldn't be easy.
No, they should have real stakes, real consequences.
Exactly. It's about showing that internal struggle, the process of making a tough decision, not just the outcome.
Okay, so we've talked about actions, choices, and all that. But what about their inner world? Those thoughts and feelings that aren't always visible.
That's so important. It's not just about what they do, it's about what they think and feel. Seeger stresses the importance of giving your characters a rich inner life.
Right, because we're not just robots going through the motions. We have this whole internal monologue running constantly.
And sometimes those thoughts and feelings are in direct conflict with our outward actions. Think about a character who appears calm and collected on the surface, but is secretly battling intense anxiety or grief.
Oh, that's so relatable. I
Yeah.
feel like we all do that to some extent. Put on a brave face for the world.
Exactly. And revealing those inner struggles makes a character feel so much more human.
Okay, so how do you actually show that inner life on the page?
There are lots of ways. Internal monologues, flashbacks, dreams, even conversations with other characters where they can confide their true feelings.
It's about giving us glimpses into that hidden world, the one beneath the surface.
And remember, a character isn't an island. They exist in relation to others.
Ah, relationships. They keep coming up. I guess that really is the core of it all, isn't it?
Relationships are at the core of human experience, and they're also the lifeblood of any good story. They create conflict, provide support, reveal character, and often drive the plot forward.
And each relationship is unique, right? I mean, how you interact with your parents is going to be totally different from how you are with your best friend.
Exactly. And Seeger emphasizes that those dynamics should evolve over time, just like in real life. Characters might grow closer, they might drift apart, betray each other, forgive each other.
Oh, yeah, forgiveness.
Yeah.
That's a big one, especially in families.
It's about creating a web of interconnected relationships that feels authentic and emotionally resonant. Because in the end, stories are about people and how they connect with each other.
Okay, so we've talked about the inner world, the outer world, the relationships, the struggles. It's LT fifth. How do you take all of that and make sure your character is actually memorable? What makes them stand out?
Well, one technique Seeger highlights is giving your character a signature quirk or trait, something instantly recognizable.
Oh, like a catchphrase.
That's one way. Or maybe they always wear a certain hat or have a peculiar habit, like tapping their fingers 3 times before they speak.
Okay, I can see how that would make them stand out. But wouldn't that feel kind of forced?
It could if it's not done well. The key is to make it consistent and believable, an extension of their personality, not just something random you slap on.
So those quirks can be physical
Behavioral.
or even verbal. It's about using those details strategically to enhance their development. It's like giving them a little dot flair.
Exactly. A touch of individuality that helps them stand out from the crowd. And it's not just about external quirks, but also about their internal motivations. What drives a character's actions? What are they striving for?
Ah, motivations. That's got to be a big one. Because if we don't understand why a character does something, we can't really connect with them.
Exactly. Seeger emphasizes that every character needs a clear set of motivations, and those motivations should be believable and relatable.
Even if their actions aren't always admirable.
Even then, think about a character who is driven by revenge or a burning ambition to achieve something great.
Okay, yeah, those are powerful motivators, even if they sometimes lead people to do bad things. So it's about understanding the why behind the what.
Exactly. And understanding those motivations allows the reader to empathize with the character, even if they don't condone their actions.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like we might not agree with what they're doing, but we get why they're doing it.
Right. It's about seeing the world through their eyes, understanding their perspective.
And sometimes Those motivations come from a place of vulnerability, right?
Absolutely. No one is invincible. We all have those weaknesses and vulnerabilities, and Seeger believes it's crucial to show that in our characters. It's what makes them feel human.
Because no one's perfect.
Right.
We all have those chinks in our armor.
And those vulnerabilities create opportunities for conflict, growth, even redemption. Think about a character who is physically strong and capable but struggles with intense anxiety.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Or someone who is brilliant and successful, but secretly plagued by self-doubt.
Exactly. Those vulnerabilities make them sympathetic, relatable, and ultimately more human.
And those vulnerabilities can come in so many forms. Physical, emotional, psychological.
The key is to make them believable, relevant to the character's overall arc.
So they're not just random weaknesses thrown in. They're part of a bigger picture.
Exactly. They should serve a purpose.
Now let's switch gears a bit. We've talked about a lot of concrete stuff. But what about a character's worldview? How does that play into all of this?
A worldview is how a character sees the world, their perspective on life, their philosophy, their moral compass. It's shaped by their upbringing, their culture, their experiences, even their genetics.
So like someone who grew up in a strict religious household versus someone raised by free-spirited artists.
Exactly. Their worldviews would likely be very different. And those differences can create fascinating conflicts. Imagine a cynical, world-weary detective paired with a rookie who is idealistic and believes in the system.
Oh, that's a classic pairing. Their clashing worldviews would lead to some great tension and maybe some humor, too.
Exactly. It's about showing those different ways people interpret the world and how those interpretations shape their actions and relationships.
So it's not just about making them relatable. It's about making them interesting.
Interesting, thought-provoking, and memorable.
Speaking of memorable,
Yeah.
sometimes you want a character who's a bit mysterious.
Hmm.
Someone who keeps us guessing.
Ah, the allure of mystery. Seeger agrees. A well-placed mystery can really hook the reader.
But how do you create that sense of mystery without being too vague?
It's about leaving some things unsaid, hinting at secrets, creating a sense of intrigue around the character.
Like a character who has a mysterious past.
Perfect example. Or maybe they have a hidden talent or a secret identity.
Ooh, those are good. So we know there's more to them than meets the eye.
Exactly. And those mysteries make the reader ask questions, keep turning the pages to find out the answers.
And when those answers are finally
It'll
revealed.
be a satisfying payoff for the reader.
Exactly. So it's not just about being mysterious for the sake of it. It's about using that mystery to create a compelling character arc.
You got it.
Okay, I think we've covered just about everything. But you know what? I almost forgot something really crucial. Relationships.
Ah, yes. Can't forget those.
Because in the end, it's our relationships that shape us.
Right.
The people we love, the people we lose, the people we fight with. That's what makes life interesting. And the same goes for characters, right?
Absolutely. Seeger emphasizes that relationships are the lifeblood of any good story.
So it's not enough to create a character in isolation. We need to see how they interact with others.
Exactly. And each relationship should be unique, multifaceted, just like in real life. The way a character interacts with their parent, their best friend, their romantic partner, those are all going to be different dynamics. And those relationships should evolve and change throughout the story, just like they do in real life.
People grow closer, they drift apart, they might even betray each other.
Exactly. And through those changing dynamics, we get to see different sides of the characters, how they handle conflict, how they grow.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Understanding human nature, diving into backstories, crafting believable dialogue, the importance of flaws and vulnerabilities, even the power of humor. But I think we need to talk about something pretty basic, a character's name.
Names, yes. They're more important than many people realize.
Because I've definitely agonized over finding the perfect name for a character before. But I've never thought about it as deeply as, like some of these other things. What does the book say about choosing names?
Well, Seeger points out that names hold a lot of power. They can reveal a character's background, their personality, even hint at their fate.
Ooh, fate. Okay, give me an example.
Think about names like Athena or Loki. They instantly evoke certain images and expectations, right?
It's true. I've definitely judged characters based on their name before I even started reading.
We all do it. It's subconscious. But as writers, we can use that to our advantage.
Okay, but how do you find that balance between a name that fits the character and a name that isn't too obvious
Yeah.
or cliche? Like, you don't want every brave warrior to be named Eric or something.
Right, it's a delicate balance. Seeger suggests immersing yourself in the character's world. Research popular names from the time period if you're writing historical fiction.
Ooh, I like that. It's like getting into their headspace, but also their dot time space.
Exactly. And if they come from a specific culture, learn about naming traditions.
Right. A name should feel authentic to the character and the world they live in. It's like that example we talked about earlier, William Kelly living with the Amish to prepare for witness.
Exactly. It's that level of commitment to authenticity, to getting the details right. And beyond cultural stuff, think about how the name sounds. Does it flow well?
Right, because you don't want a name that's like a tongue twister or a name that just doesn't fit with the tone of the story.
Exactly. Does it evoke the right mood? A name like Scarlet might suggest passion and boldness.
And a name like Willow might be more gentle, real.
Exactly. Those subtle associations can shape the reader's perception of the character right from the start. It's like planting a seed in their mind.
So the next time I'm stuck on a character's name, resist the urge to just randomly pick something from a baby name website.
Definitely. Put in the time and effort to find a name that truly resonates with their essence. It'll pay off in the long run.
You've convinced me. Names are important. But what about their physical presence? How much emphasis does Seeger put on describing a character's appearance?
She stresses the importance of going beyond just listing physical traits. Make the reader see them. Think about their posture, how they move, the way they hold themselves.
Right, because those details can reveal so much about their personality, their emotional state, like as someone who slouches and avoids eye contact. They're probably shy or insecure.
Exactly. Whereas a character who takes up space, walks with confidence, meets everyone's gaze head on, that tells you something different.
Definitely. And then there's clothing. Remember that example from the book? The character who always wears bright, flamboyant outfits?
Yeah.
That could suggest a need for attention, a desire to be seen.
Or maybe a way to overcompensate for insecurity.
Right. So it's not just about describing the clothes, it's about what those choices reveal about the person beneath them.
Precisely. Their wardrobe becomes a form of self-expression.
And speaking of expression, their physical surroundings are a form of expression too, right? Their environment.
Absolutely. Seeger points out that where a character lives, works, spends their time, can have a huge impact on who they are.
Right. It's not just about describing a setting. It's about how that environment shapes their personality. Like imagine a character who lives in a tiny, cluttered apartment with books and art supplies everywhere.
That tells you they prioritize creativity and ideas over material possessions.
Exactly. Contrast that with a character who lives in a sterile, minimalist penthouse with nothing but white walls and designer furniture.
Those are two very different people.
Totally. So the details of their environment can give us clues about their values, their priorities, their whole way of life. And you don't even have to say it directly.
That's the power of showing, not telling. Those visual details create a sense of immersion for the reader.
It's like we're right there in that cluttered apartment with them, surrounded by their dot stuff.
Exactly. We can almost smell the paint and the coffee.
Okay, I love those sensory details. But now let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about external factors, but what about the internal drive that makes a character tick their purpose?
Ah, purpose. That's a big one. What's their reason for being? What role do they play in the grand scheme of the story?
Seeger makes the point that even minor characters should have a function. They shouldn't just exist. They need to contribute to the story somehow.
Right. It's not enough to just populate the world with random people. Every character should have a purpose, a reason for being there.
So it's like everyone has a part to play in the narrative. They might reveal something important about the main character, or offer a unique perspective on the themes, or even just provide comic relief.
Exactly. But their presence should always be intentional, never accidental.
Okay, I'm getting it. It's like no wasted space, no wasted characters. Everyone has a job to do.
Precisely. And to create those impactful moments, to make those characters count, Seeger encourages us to consider their goals. What are they striving for? What motivates them? What stands in their way?
Goals.
Yeah.
That's what gives them direction, right? A character without a goal is like a ship without a rudder. They're just drifting.
Exactly. And those goals don't have to be huge, world-altering things. Sometimes the most compelling stories are about ordinary people pursuing ordinary desires. Like imagine a character who just wants to win a local pie baking contest, or finally work up the courage to ask their crush out on a date.
I love those. They sound so jot small, but they could be huge for that character.
Exactly. And those seemingly small goals can become incredibly powerful when you factor in their internal struggles, their fears, their doubts. It's about showing the human side of that pursuit, the emotional roller coaster they go through.
Because the journey is just as important as the destination.
You said it.
And those journeys are never smooth sailing. There's got to be conflict.
Of course. Conflict is essential. A character's goal will inevitably clash with the goals of other characters, which creates tension and drives the plot forward.
And that's what keeps us turning the pages, right?
Yeah.
We want to see if they'll overcome those obstacles, if they'll achieve their goals, if they'll triumph in the end.
Exactly. We're invested in their struggles, we're rooting for them, even when we know they might not succeed. And Seeger emphasizes that those struggles, those conflicts, are ultimately what lead to transformation. A character who emerges from a challenge completely unchanged is a missed opportunity.
So it's not just about giving them a goal, it's about showing how that pursuit changes them.
For better or for worse.
Oh yeah, good point. They might come out stronger, wiser.
Or they might become jaded, cynical, broken by their experiences.
Ooh, that's dark, but realistic.
It's about embracing the full spectrum of human experience.
Now, all this talk about growth and transformation might make it sound like we're aiming for perfection, but we all know no one's perfect.
Mhm.
What does Seeger say about incorporating flaws into our characters?
She believes flaws are essential for making characters relatable. No one's perfect, and trying to create flawless characters just leads to unrealistic and, frankly, boring characters.
It's like those impossibly beautiful, impossibly talented characters you sometimes see in movies. They're not believable. They don't feel human.
Exactly. It's those imperfections, those cracks in the facade that make us connect with them on a deeper level.
Because we see ourselves in them, right? We
Yeah.
all have our weaknesses, our struggles. And seeing those reflected in fictional characters makes them feel real.
Exactly. It's not about making them perfect, it's about making them human. And those flaws can add so much to a story. They create depth, complexity, and even suspense.
Suspense. How so?
Well, they make us wonder if the character will overcome those weaknesses, or if those flaws will ultimately be their undoing.
Ooh, right. Like a fatal flaw. That's so classic.
Exactly. Imagine a character who is brilliant, but also incredibly insecure. That insecurity might lead them to make self-sabotaging choices or push away the people who care about them.
Oh, that's so heartbreaking. Or what about someone who's charming and charismatic, but also a compulsive liar?
Perfect example. That inability to be honest could jeopardize their relationships and lead to their downfall.
It's like those flaws become the driving force behind their actions, and we, as readers, are on the edge of our seats wondering what's going to happen next.
Exactly. And those flaws often create the most compelling internal conflicts. A character who is battling addiction or fear or self-destructive tendencies, that struggle is inherently more interesting than someone who has it all figured out.
It's like those flaws become the crucible in which they are tested, the fire in which they are refined.
That's a beautiful way to put it, and sometimes those flaws can even be a source of humor.
Oh, right. Like that character who's always tripping over things or saying the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Exactly. Those quirks can make us laugh, but they can also make us empathize with them.
It's like those flaws become part of their charm, something that makes them unique and memorable.
And speaking of memorable, Seeger suggests that every character should have at least one secret, something they're hiding from others.
Secrets.
Oh,
Ooh, I love secrets.
that's
They
so
add so much intrigue and suspense.
They do, and they make us wonder what the character is trying to protect and what might happen if the truth is revealed.
Like, imagine a character who seems perfectly ordinary but is secretly leading a double life.
Ooh, that's a good one. Or a character who seems happy and successful but is secretly haunted by a past mistake.
Those are great, so we know there's more to them than meets the eye.
Exactly. And those secrets create tension. We're constantly wondering when or if that secret will be revealed and what the consequences will be.
And that moment of revelation can be a turning point in the story.
Absolutely. It can change relationships, alter the course of events, force the character to confront a part of themselves they've been trying to deny. Secrets can be a powerful tool for driving the plot forward and revealing a character's true nature.
Okay, we've talked about flaws, secrets, and those internal struggles. But what about those life-altering events that are totally beyond our control?
You're talking about past traumas.
Yeah, those big moments that shape who we are, even if we try to pretend they didn't happen.
Seeger suggests exploring how past traumas can influence a character's personality, their fears, their relationships, their entire outlook on life.
It's a sensitive topic,
Mm.
but it's true that past traumas can have a huge impact on who we are.
Think about a character who experienced a significant loss in childhood, witnessed a violent crime, or survived a natural disaster. Those events might make them withdraw from others, struggle with trust issues, or constantly feel the need to be in control.
Or they might overcompensate and become fiercely protective of those they love.
Exactly. It's about showing how those experiences have shaped them, both their strengths and their vulnerabilities. And it's important to approach those traumas with sensitivity and respect.
Absolutely. It's not about exploiting their pain. It's about using those experiences to create a more nuanced and well-rounded character. And while those traumas can cast a long shadow, they don't have to define a character completely.
Exactly. Seeger reminds us that even the most deeply wounded characters can find moments of joy, connection, and even humor.
Humor, yes. Even in the darkest of times, a little bit of humor can be such a gift.
It can diffuse tension, bring people together, and even help us cope with difficult situations. And in fiction, it can make characters more relatable and endearing.
But each character's sense of humor is unique, right?
Absolutely. Think about someone who uses dry wit and sarcasm as a defense mechanism.
Versus someone who's always cracking jokes, trying to lighten the mood.
Exactly. Those are totally different approaches to humor, and they tell us something about the person underneath.
Like their coping mechanisms, their social intelligence, their overall outlook on life.
Exactly. And a well-placed joke can do so much. It can break the tension, provide relief from a heavy moment, and even deepen the emotional impact of a scene.
It's about finding that balance between humor and seriousness, creating a story that's both entertaining and thought-provoking.
That's the sweet spot. And speaking of thought-provoking, Seeger also talks about the importance of giving your characters a strong moral compass. It's not enough for them to just be interesting, and they need to have a sense of right and wrong, what they stand for, what they believe in, what they're willing to fight for.
So it's about defining their values, their guiding principles. But do those values always stay the same?
Not necessarily. Their moral compasses can be really strong and unshakable, or they can be fragile, susceptible to temptation.
Oh, right. The ones who get corrupted along the way.
Yeah.
Those are always fascinating. So it's about showing those moments of choice, those moral dilemmas, because that's where we really see what they're made of.
Exactly. And those choices often tie into a character's sense of agency. Do they feel in control of their own destiny, or are they constantly reacting to the whims of fate? Seeger stresses the importance of giving characters agency, the power to make choices that have a real impact on the story.
So they're not just puppets being manipulated by the plot or other characters, they're making things happen.
Right. Readers want to see characters who are active participants in their own destinies. They're making decisions, facing consequences, and ultimately shaping their own outcomes.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like we want to see them struggle, make mistakes, and ultimately grow from those experiences. It's what makes them feel real and relatable.
And even if they make the wrong choice, as long as we understand why they made it, we can still empathize with them.
It's about seeing the world through their eyes, understanding their motivations, even if we don't agree with their actions.
Exactly. Now, all this talk about actions and choices might make you think that's all that matters. But Seeker reminds us that characters are more than just their actions. They have a rich inner life full of thoughts, feelings, dreams, and fears.
It's that internal world that makes them feel truly human, right?
Yeah.
Because we're not just robots going through the motions, we're constantly thinking and feeling.
Exactly. And sometimes those thoughts and feelings are in direct conflict with our outward actions. Think about a character who appears calm and collected on the surface, but is secretly battling intense anxiety or grief.
Oh, that's so relatable. We all do that to some extent, right?
Right.
Put on a brave face for the world.
Precisely. And revealing those inner struggles makes a character feel so much more human and relatable. It allows us to connect with them on a deeper level.
Okay, so how do you actually show that inner life on the page?
There are so many ways. Internal monologues, flashbacks, dreams, even conversations with other characters where they can confide their true feelings.
It's about giving us glimpses into that hidden world, the one beneath the surface.
And by revealing those inner thoughts and feelings, we create characters who are more than just collections of actions and traits. They become complex individuals with their own unique perspectives, desires, and fears.
I love that. It's like we're not just reading about them, we're getting to know them.
Exactly. And by the end of the story, we feel like we've truly been on a journey with them, that we've shared their triumphs and their heartbreaks.
So to sum it all up, it's not just about what they do, it's about why they do it. It's about their internal struggles, their relationships, their flaws, their secrets, their past traumas, their hopes and dreams. It's about the whole package.
You said it. It's about embracing the full complexity of human nature and bringing those complexities to life on the page.
Wow, we've really gone deep on this one. I feel like I've learned so much about what goes into making those characters that truly stick with you long after the story is over.
It's been a great conversation, and we've barely scratched the surface of all the insights Seeger offers in...
I know. There's so much to unpack, it's almost overwhelming.
I know what you mean. But Seeger offers this really cool tool for organizing your thoughts and kind of focusing your creative energy. It's called the 10-word character sketch.
10 words. That sounds intense.
It is. It's a challenge, but it forces you to distill the essence of your character. Like, strip away all the extra details and pinpoint those core traits that really define them.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How would that even work?
Remember Jack Walsh, the bounty hunter from Midnight Run?
Oh, yeah. Gruff, cynical, world-weary.
Exactly. We did a quick sketch of him earlier.
We did. And even with just those few words, I could totally picture him. It's amazing how much information you can pack into such a small space.
Right. It's a great reminder that clarity and concision are powerful tools for writers. And once you've got those 10 words, you can start building outward, adding layers of complexity, all that good stuff.
So it's like a blueprint, a foundation for a fully realized character.
Exactly. And the best part is, it can help you get unstuck when you feel overwhelmed. Just focus on those 10 words, and the rest will start to flow.
I love that. It feels manageable, even if you're just starting out. And honestly, with all this talk about techniques and theories, it's good to remember that there's no one right way to create a character.
Oh, absolutely. Seeger makes that clear throughout the book. It's about finding what works for you, the approach that sparks your imagination and lets you tap into that creative voice.
It's about embracing the journey, experimenting, and trusting your instincts. If something feels right, go with it.
I love that. And remember, you've got inspiration all around you. Pay attention to the people you meet, eavesdrop on conversations, observe their little quirks. You never know where that next unforgettable character might come from.
Sometimes the best characters are the ones who remind us of someone we know, or maybe even a little bit of ourselves. It's about finding those universal truths, those moments of shared humanity that make characters resonate with readers. Because in the end, isn't that what we all want? To feel seen, to feel understood, to know that we're not alone in this crazy world.
That's beautifully said. And that's the power of great characters, isn't it? They make us feel less alone. They remind us that we're all in this together.
So for anyone listening, don't be afraid to dive into that world, the world of character creation. It's a rich and rewarding journey, full of endless possibilities. Embrace the challenge, experiment, play, and most importantly, have fun.
Yes. Have fun. And if you're looking for more inspiration, definitely check out Linda Seeger's I Way. It's packed with practical advice and thought-provoking insights.
Happy writing, everyone.